That was U.S. President Donald Trump just this afternoon giving the green light for a permit on a project that would transport Canadian crude from the Canada-U.S. border to Wyoming.
The transborder pipeline, similar to the old Keystone XL pipeline, will significantly expand our ability to move oil around North America, oil and gas around North America. It's a huge deal in terms of long-term energy dominance and energy security.
Slightly different than the last administration.
Very different than last.
They wouldn't sign a pipeline deal, and we have pipelines going up. And by the way, they're way underground. They're not a problem. Nobody even knows they're there.
Donald Trump today signing a presidential permit to authorize a major new oil pipeline to carry Canadian crude across the border, a project that would revive parts of the Keystone XL pipeline canceled by former U.S. President Joe Biden over environmental concerns.
Slightly different than the last administration.
Very different than last.
They wouldn't sign a pipeline deal, and we have pipelines going up.
The red line shows you what Bridger Pipeline wants to build from the Canadian border to Wyoming.
One quiet approval just changed the game for Canada's oil. This new pipeline can move more Canadian oil faster, helping the country earn more money and grow its energy power. It sounds like a win, but there's a bigger story behind it that few are talking about. Why is this deal causing so much attention? On April 2026, Donald Trump signed a presidential permit in the Oval Office authorizing Bridger Pipeline Expansion LLC to construct, connect, operate, and maintain pipeline facilities at the international boundary between the United States and Canada in Phillips County, Montana. The project will carry Canadian crude oil from the border crossing through eastern Montana and eastern Wyoming to Guernsey, Wyoming, where it will link with existing pipeline infrastructure. With a pen and a few words, slightly different from the last administration, they wouldn't sign a pipeline deal, and we have pipelines going up. Trump greenlit what energy analysts are calling the most significant new cross-border oil infrastructure approval since Keystone XL. The project is a joint proposal from Canadian pipeline company Southbow and the US-based Bridger Pipeline. The Bridger Pipeline expansion would carry up to 550,000 barrels of oil a day from the Canadian border with Montana down through eastern Montana and Wyoming, where it would link with another pipeline. The project could increase Canada's crude exports to the US by more than 12%. Southbow, the Canadian pipeline company behind the canceled Keystone XL pipeline, is partnering with US company Bridger Pipeline on the proposed project. Southbow is considering reviving some of the already built line in Alberta and Saskatchewan. In 2021, about 150 kilometers of pipe were installed in Alberta. Southbow was created in 2024, when former Keystone XL proponent TC Energy spun off its oil pipeline business. The connection to Keystone XL is direct and intentional. The project is a quasi-revival of the canceled Keystone XL pipeline that would have carried Canadian oil sands crude to the US. Former President Barack Obama rejected the project in 2015. Trump sought to revive it during his first term, and then former President Joe Biden withdrew a key permit for it in 2021. The Bridger Pipeline expansion uses different routing on the American side through Montana and Wyoming rather than the Keystone XL path, but relies on the existing permitted corridor and partially constructed infrastructure, the Canadian side, where approximately 150 kilometers of pipe already sit in the ground, installed in Alberta before Keystone XL's cancellation, ready to be connected. Sometimes called Keystone Light, the Bridger Pipeline expansion would not cross any Native American reservations. More than 70% would be built within existing pipeline corridors, and 80% on private land. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith responded to the announcement with immediate enthusiasm. This means Alberta producers will be able to produce more of the oil that the world needs. It's incredible to see that work already paying off with announcements like this, Smith said. The presidential permit comes at a time when Canada and the US are facing an ongoing trade war and will soon begin negotiations on a new North American trade agreement. Last October, Prime Minister Mark Carney floated the idea of Keystone XL to Trump during a meeting at the White House. The federal government's response was measured and strategic. Charlotte Power, a spokesperson for Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson, said in an emailed statement, "We are aware of the issuance of permits to Bridger Pipeline. The Government of Canada remains focused on strengthening Canada's position as an energy superpower, supporting North American and global energy security, and advancing the diversification of our trade partnerships." The capacity figures attached to the project are significant for Canadian oil producers who have long faced export constraints. Heather Exner-Piro, Senior Fellow and Director of Energy, Natural Resources, and Environment at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, said while Bridger has previously said 550,000 barrels of crude oil could go through Canada to the US a day, it could go up to 1 million. So they're going to wait to see what the market is expecting, how much the market can take. But obviously, 500,000 barrels is significant egress. The market context that makes this approval particularly timely is the global crude supply disruption caused by the Strait of Hormuz conflict. Heavy sour crude, exactly the grade Alberta's oil sands produce, has been in acute global shortage since the corridor closed in late February, driving the WCS-WTI price differential to its narrowest level in years. Additional export capacity into American refinery systems, at a moment when Canadian crude commands premium pricing relative to historical discounts, translates into direct and immediate revenue improvement for Alberta producers. Bridger Pipeline could avoid a reversal by a future administration if it's able to complete its project before Trump leaves office. It hopes to start construction in the fall of 2027 and finish it by late 2028 or early 2029, Bridger spokesperson Bill Salvin said. Trump's term ends January 2029. That timeline creates a specific political urgency around project execution. The presidential permit grants cross-border authorization, but the project still requires additional state and federal environmental approvals before construction can begin. True company subsidiaries have been responsible for several major pipeline accidents, including more than 50,000 gallons of crude that spilled into the Yellowstone River and fouled a Montana city's drinking water supply. 2015, a 45,000-gallon diesel spill in Wyoming in 2022, and a 2016 spill that released more than 600,000 gallons of crude in North Dakota, contaminating the Little Missouri River and a tributary. Subsidiaries of True agreed to pay a $12.5 million civil penalty to settle a government lawsuit over the North Dakota and Montana spills. Environmental organizations and indigenous groups are expected to challenge the project through the state and federal permitting processes that remain ahead. The presidential permit is the necessary federal authorization for the border crossing itself, the threshold that blocked Keystone XL under Biden and that Trump has now provided for the Bridger expansion. What comes next is the environmental review process through Montana and Wyoming regulatory bodies, which will be the terrain on which opposition to the project is most likely to be mounted. Southbow spokesperson Salomia Martoyu said in an emailed statement, Southbow continues to evaluate the Prairie Connector project, a potential expansion of its Canadian asset base that would leverage existing infrastructure and permitted corridors to improve market access for Canadian crude oil. The Prairie Connector project remains in early stages and is subject to ongoing commercial, stakeholder, and right shoulder discussions, regulatory processes, and evaluation. The Bridger permit adds a new dimension to the Canada-US energy relationship at a moment when both countries are preparing for the July 1st CUSMA review. Canada has been simultaneously expanding its Pacific export capacity through Trans Mountain, developing Arctic-Atlantic shipping routes through Churchill, negotiating critical minerals partnerships across 4 continents, and securing Shell's $22 billion commitment to the Montney. The Bridger permit adds southward egress to a Canadian energy export infrastructure that is expanding in every direction simultaneously. More routes, more buyers, and now more American refinery access, all in the same 60-day period.